My mom told me not to talk to strangers on the internet, but I'm glad I didn't listen. We are the Certified Nunas, your sisters in the love of Asian entertainment.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
I'm Jessie.
I'm Natalia.
And I'm Sky.
Guess what? I'm back, baby!
Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! We can hear you now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't have to call on a landline.
It was really like corporate vibes last week when I was like editing the podcast. I'm like, this is weird.
and then prior to that, it was the whole like ghost Natalia in the chat.
Yeah,
Funny. I cut it all out, but there were like pauses where like you could tell people went to read.
We were reading.
It was like 20 seconds of silence. Oh yeah, Natalia.
Yeah. No, I
great.
just the sad little comments. People like, oh, I hope Natalia's back next week, and I'm like, no,
Not yet.
You gotta wait another week, my dude. Next week we have a whole other situation of bizarreness coming. My mom's like, oh, maybe after Christmas, like, cause you know Krista is just is giving birth, and like her partner like works like in not construction and logging, so he's like off for like several days, and she's like, oh, maybe you could stay longer and like help your sister out, and I'm like, you're gonna get better internet? Because
Like,
I'm not.
my blood runs on internet, and this
I'm
is
going
not gonna
the
work.
fuck home. Okay. Quality of this podcast should be a lot better than the last couple of weeks, because I'm back. I made it back alive. And this week we have a super exciting, super noir episode for you. Because,
Super noir.
well, not super noir, but a touch of noir.
With the finger wiggles.
I was doing the Mr. Burns fingers, even though this is
Like head tilt
this isn't
down.
a video podcast, so you can't enjoy, oh god, if this was a video podcast, I would
Not today.
not today, not today. See, we're all used to how we look on a normal day at this point. But, yikes. Not the rest of you, just me personally. I think you all look beautiful always.
Right.
This week, we are talking about the Chinese Republican drama that is currently airing on YouTube, of all places. Couple of Mirrors. Ooh, mysterious name. You should check it out. If you haven't checked it out already, now is your opportunity to pause this podcast, go to YouTube, open the app on your phone or go on your computer, look up Couple of Mirrors, and watch all 12 episodes, and then unpause this podcast and return. And that is your only warning. Like, if
Well, here we'll say a little bit about like to tantalize you to win you over.
Yeah.
Why we would recommend this without spoilers. If you like pretty period costuming, let me be specific, and very good period props and
Scenery,
very good
sets.
historical accuracy. It looked like very well done.
So gorgeous.
if you
Gosh,
like
Absolutely.
if you like gunfights,
Mm-hmm.
there's some of those.
And spies.
Yes.
Mhm.
There's a lot of
Mhm.
like intrigue and mystery in it.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
would say if you are a fan of British crime dramas, this is going to be your drama.
Mhm. Mhm.
Murder mysteries. There's...
If you're a big fan of dramas that are based on mangas, this is based on a
Actually-
manga. So
the manga is based on the show. I did
Really?
a little bit of
Okay.
research.
I wondered because I
was
watched.
looking it
I
up.
read
don't
the
listen, from
first
what-
two. So,
from what
but
I
it's
was-
based on a book, isn't it?
I think so.
Like,
But
I
they're
feel
like
like there
based
is
on-
a source that it was based on. I
Yeah.
didn't have
But it was
time
like
to
when I
research
went-
this week, but like
yeah.
I did wonder because I
I did a
thought
little
it was
bit.
based
just-
on the manga, but
I just did a little bit of research, and when I was like going and finding the manga said based on the drama currently airing
Okay.
on blah blah blah.
mhm.
So I was like, oh, that's unusual.
and there's only
Uh,
2 chapters that I could find anywhere. Everything kept saying 3rd chapter to come, so I wasn't sure if
maybe that's
They
why
were-
it got picked up like mid run, and then they were like, okay, because it is a web drama too, just as like an
Yeah.
aside. So that's kind of why it's on like YouTube. There are some plot lines that I think they express maybe a little bit better than they can from a Chinese drama, because it's not airing on like a network. However, I will say, and we'll probably discuss this further on, it's still a Chinese drama that aired while everything went down in China. So I haven't read confirmations, but I would assume the writing was dictated by the public policies that are currently in China.
Probably.
It is girl love light is really kind of what it is.
You know how they always call like these dramas that get these Chinese dramas that are based on incredibly graphically gay novels, and they call them like, you know, romance. This is like cis-mance. Like, you know it's there, but they can't say
I think for the show it's pretty clear to me from the one character. The other character doesn't seem to have quite got there by the end of the season. Like, she's still very friendly, but like maybe hasn't had her bisexual awakening yet. Like, it's a little like, I'm happily with my friend. Like, so it's kind of like watching Fried Green Tomatoes. If you've only watched the movie and never read the book, there's not a lot of obvious gay subtext there.
So should we like go ahead and say that we're going to start spoilers right now too?
Okay,
I think
spoilers coming. This is your opportunity.
So we can dive a little bit more deeper.
Sorry. Okay. So let's back this up. Let's back it up a little. I feel like we should probably talk about the plot of the show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sure. For people who don't care about spoilers and didn't go and watch it. So there is a writer. She is the most popular lady writer in Shanghai. And she's married to this dude whose dad is way high up in the government, and he also works for the government. He's a piece of shit, but she doesn't know this yet at the beginning. She thinks
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I knew like the cheating is part of the storyline or whatever, so like I knew that much. But he really had me in the first half. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
no, he did.
I thought, okay, he's a cheater, but like, he seems like a pretty, other than the cheating, a pretty good dude for about the first half. I feel it was set up
because you do go in knowing that it's a spy drama. You do know that like that's the basis of the storyline, and I thought it was purposely done to set up him as a potential death in the first part, and that was part of the intrigue.
So
like when that didn't happen, especially with the plot twist that does happen, I think that's the reason why they set it up that way, was because that impact of the other person getting shot was a little bit more intense. And I thought that was really executed well in terms of like that first part.
As far as with the plot, like, it did so much more to the plot than like if he had been taken out then, which I totally thought he was going to be, right?
When like the first couple episodes, I was like, while I was watching this, I watched it after everyone because of my mom's like internet situation. I was like texting Sky, and I think I texted like, "This bitch better murder her husband." Like, this guy is a piece of shit.
And
I said nothing. Pretty much.
She was like.
I was like, for maybe the first half of it, I was like at a place where I thought, I know this isn't where the drama is going. I know this isn't what the drama is going to be, but it, at that point, still felt like it could go in the direction of, this is one of those like reconciliation dramas. Like, he's gonna come around. She's gonna forgive him. The two best friends are gonna fall in love, and then in the end he's gonna, you know, complete his redemption arc by like dying to save her life or something. But no, that was not where we were going with this story at all.
I thought he was going to bite the dust in the first like 3 episodes. Like, I really thought he was going to be gone quick.
Especially when you kind of set up who he is as a person, because I feel like he would be like a targeted person just in general because of his dad too. Like, maybe like people who are opposed to his dad's viewpoints or that sort of thing would target his son. So there was also that too. The way that the first kind of 2 episodes are set up, you don't see the other female lead until the second episode. So that like creates the mystery too, because you don't have that reference point of why she's there, because she could be a character who's there as a spy and assassin for him specifically, not attached to the like main storyline. That's just like her storyline. And I think that was like an interesting like flip in the mystery when you kind of start to realize that's not where this story is going.
Yeah.
Right.
I did find that interesting in the manga that they do switch that around. They have her introduced like right off the bat. With that, like they pretty much start with that scene, that book signing scene where they meet, you know, which is a flashback in the show, but in this it starts there basically.
And sometimes it's tougher to do flashbacky type. Not that they don't do flashbacks in print, of course they do, but sometimes it's easier to tell a story chronologically differently in print than it would use of lots of flashbacks with obvious filters and things like that.
Well, this show did not use obvious filters for the flashback, so occasionally I was like, wait, oh, okay, flashback, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it was a little bit, I was like, wait.
She has different hair.
Would be back, and you were like, wait,
what?
Did I miss an episode? Did I watch them out of order?
It was always very much like, oh, their hair is different. Okay.
Yeah. That was how I knew. I was like, okay. She's got like cute young lady hair instead of married lady hair. We're in the past.
She had much longer hair when we were back, like in the very oldie, you know, pre-marriage days or whatever. Her hair was so much longer, and you're like, okay, now I'm making that connection. I got it.
The journalist guy, he always looked the same.
You mean he looked like he was like 19 years old the entire time, despite the fact he was supposed to be like a grown-ass 30-year-old man? Like, yeah, okay. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves again. We haven't even like got. Okay, so she meets this photographer because they hire the photographer to take her photos for her book tour because she's trying to get her book like published in Japan. And there's just like this cute, very tsundere, I would say, is the personality type, lady photographer who runs her own business. Meanwhile, you find out that this lady photographer was actually secretly a child soldier who was fighting someone. She was in like a mercenary band of child soldiers.
Who also ended up fighting in Europe, obviously. That was
there was like a random white dude who was like her commander. Like,
hey,
it's all very good.
He did pretty good, I will say.
Listen, in terms of white dudes in Asian shows, not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Yeah, and I do
agree.
think that this is kind of a storyline that I feel that they really like messed up on because they didn't really explore it too much, and so you didn't really understand why it's important, because it's obviously important to her, and I wonder if it was in the main thing, and because of potentially, you know, they had a longer run or thought they were going to have a longer run, and they didn't realize until later they had to kind of like cut those out kind of weirdly. But I will say that that's like a pretty big misstep in the story creation of her. Because
it does feel like more story should have definitely been told there.
Yeah, especially how it came into the story at that point, and then it just kind of stopped. Like you didn't really see it again.
Yeah.
Until kind of the end, and then it sort of feels like they threw it in a little at the end again to like
little spice, just,
you know.
They're literally, it was
not
seemed
really
like it should have been like a really important thing that was explored, but instead it just sort of is like a little side note as to why she can do things that she does. First, she gets a note that says, your husband's cheating on you. Like, so she goes through her best friend and manager, who's her only friend. And she's like, I got this note that my boy, he's been cheating on me. I'm like, what do I do? And her best friend's like, don't worry about it. That doesn't seem likely. I'm gonna check it out for you. Oh. Bitch, I knew right then, okay?
Right? Like, me too, because I was like, no best friend responds that way to cheating. I was like,
it wouldn't be like, I'm sure it's nothing, I'll check it out. I'd be like, who's this bitch? I'm gonna find her. I'm gonna tell her the truth.
No.
He is married.
We will tie up your husband and beat the truth out of him. Like,
Yeah. I mean, my initial thing would just be like, "Where's your husband? He is now dead." Like, we are taking him out.
Like often, I'm gonna go for the husband first. I'm not gonna be like, "Who's this?" How dare this woman? Not even like, how dare this man?
Especially with the guy is lying to the girl anyway. Yeah. Most girls don't know they're the other woman.
And the friend character is like a really big part of her life. It's not just like someone she's only like known for like a little bit, or like only has become friends because of a manager. And you don't see this until a little bit later on, but she like was her friend before she became her manager.
Like, from like
now,
school
granted,
friends.
she probably like
age.
It was her plot all along, just to kind of like help her, because she knew she could piggytail back on like the main character. But this is someone she's known for like a decade, and so it's a huge deal, especially for her to be doing this specifically.
Yeah, and so if you're not catching on, the best friend is sleeping with the husband.
Well, as the story goes too, like they reveal, so like this girl was like plotting to take the husband since like before the marriage happened. She's like the worst.
They're both okay. Both her and the husband, terrible human beings. They're both the worst. But here's where there's a second storyline, and things start to get a little murky. So it turns out that they're worse than you could possibly imagine, not even just the cheating. They participated in a hit-and-run murder of a little milk girl who was the assassin photographer lady's only friend that she had made since moving to Shanghai, because she delivered her milk, and they were friendly. And, by the way, the assassin lady has a really cute fat cat named Lucky. The cat, like every time the cat's on, like just looking so uninterested in being in this production, chef's kiss. So fat, gray cat, love it.
Even the characters are in love with the cat. Everyone loves the cat.
Everyone loves the cat. The cat is A+ in this show.
I was just reading the manga like right before we came on, and I can't remember from the first episode if this was in it or not, but in the manga, when they first walk into the photographer thing, the cat totally attacks the husband. Like the cat knows the husband's the worst. Right off the bat, he like jumps at him and like, ah!
The cat knows all.
Cat.
Animals know. They know.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the little adorable milk girl, because I feel like we need to talk about her a little bit.
Oh, she's so cute.
She gets a fair bit of screen time. You see the friendship develop with her and the photographer, and it is a lovely little plot line. And so you feel that pain.
Yeah, especially because you start to like notice that even though the spy girl doesn't have a lot of friends and she doesn't talk a lot, she pretty much knows everybody in her neighborhood area. And the backstory with the little girl that she knows personally, and why she kind of connects with the little girl a little bit more, or focuses on her a little bit more, is that because her mother is very absent in everything that she does. And is essentially, this little girl is going and paying the bills. Her mother is portrayed as like a less than moral human in the story.
Steals her money.
Yeah, so steals her money there and stuff like that.
She's missing.
Yeah, so she's very absent with her, and the girl picks up on this, and that's why it's a little bit more devastating too, because it's not just the fact that the girl got hit and run. It's also, she knew that her mother was going to be absent and not even like care about her being missing.
Yeah. She gets hit and run, this little milk girl. But she probably would have lived if it hadn't been for this son of a bitch magician. Because there's always, like, listen, there's a magician, okay? This era,
there's
a magician. So a magician, like, just for some fucking reason, just to be a piece of shit, I guess, just shows up and starts taking pictures of her dying on the street as, like, inspiration for his new magician act.
You find out later he has a history of murdering people because he likes
specifically children.
He likes to see their death face. He works it into his magic act. It's a whole thing.
So our friendly tsundere assassin decides, fuck this shit, I'm gonna take out all the people who killed my only friend. So
As
she
you
then
do.
proceeds to very effectively go and murder the people responsible for the death of her only friend. And guess who was drunkenly driving the car in the hit and run? That's right, it was the best friend husband stealer. The husband was also in the car, and yet somehow does not get ganked. I like it would have solved so many problems.
Well, also it's like so much more intriguing when this like starts to unfold in this like series, and you're kind of like figuring out why like she was killed, because you see the death before you see all this happen.
Yeah.
Which was a really great like way to show this, a death of the mistress, I should say. But it's like just so intriguing the way that they did it, because you kind of at that point, because you're going into this show knowing that it's like a potential girl love, like you don't know how heightened they're going to be on the romance and stuff, not just in like censor ways. Are they going to make this like rom-com levels, or they're not? Like you don't know that at this point. And so you're kind of almost in the like already thinking that, oh, A, that the her husband's going to die, and B, like the mistress is getting offed because of like the spy girl loving the main lead. But that's not the case at all. It's like completely irrelevant. But like the way that they tie this in, especially because when you are first introduced to the magician, it's at an event where the main lead and her husband is at, and they actually are there to see the death because it's during one of his tricks that happened. And so
very clever murder.
Like, so it's like she's already like there too, which also kind of like establishes this like subplot where she's always at the sites or around the people who are dying. So it's like a constant like she has more to the story than what.
And also it's like because she's so famous as the most popular lady writer of Shanghai, the fact that she's around all of these, literally next to all of these people getting murdered, puts her in the sights of our poor cop character. So Ernest.
I love him so much.
He's great.
He's so good.
That man is, he's working hard.
He was just doing what he needed to. Like,
he was not a stupid cop.
And he was polite. He was polite.
There were like, if you looked at the evidence, they pointed to her a lot of times. So like, it wasn't wrong of him to like suspect things. He's just doing his job.
But at the same time, you're like, dude.
At the same time, you're always like,
yeah, exactly. Like, he does some unethical stuff too that he probably shouldn't have done.
It's also hard to like kind of watch this in the like eyes of a 2021. You know, like what he was doing in the show is actually probably factually correct for the time period and not seen as like an unethical thing. That's literally how that would work, especially because, you know, they don't have all the technology that we do, or like the knowledge, just general knowledge of crimes and how they're done. It's just kind of absent.
Although I did have a hard time initially feeling too bad for it. Like he kept going after the, you know, we have to get the killer of the mistress. But you're like, you know, if you guys had just actually gone after the hit and run driver from this poor girl's murder,
like
the other murders probably wouldn't have happened.
They didn't even like try to find out who this little girl was. Like they didn't like find out.
She just
like,
sat there.
She just sat there in the morgue
Yeah.
until like the other girl went and looked for her because a little milk boy showed up, and she was like, "Who the fuck are you?" Like, come on, tell me, where's the girl? And he's like, "Oh my god, I'm glad someone finally cares what happened to her, because she gone, she dead." And she was like, "No." But also the little boy playing the little milk boy, very cute as well. Lots of cute kids in this. Later on, there's also a very fat baby. So if you're like really into like adorable fat babies, this show's got everything for you, my dudes.
Got it all.
Got it all. The husband gets worse. I don't
That's
even
a good
know,
summary.
I don't even know how to like.
The hits just keep on coming with him. Like
Well,
I was like, okay, he was kind of dumb and he fell into a cheating relationship. I get. Oh no, he was cheating with lots of people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, like
dude
he just
literally planned to cheat from their wedding day. Also, dude's a fucking liar. Okay, this is not this man's first driving in a car with someone who just hits a random person on the street, because that's how he met his wife. He literally hit her with his car and then took her to the hospital, where turns out before they met, she had been in another relationship with the reporter dude who comes back, the one who looks eternally young for some reason. Great turtlenecks on that dude, though. Great good looking dude. Great turtlenecks, great little glasses. But anyway, so he had just left her, so she never told him that she was pregnant. So she was pregnant by her boyfriend, and they weren't married, and that's a big ooh. So she gets hit by the car, loses the baby, and he's like, oh shit, but she's so pretty. And then he's like, I love you, girl. I want to take you out of poverty and let you be a writer. And I don't care about your past, that you were pregnant. He did care, okay? He 100% cared. He's a liar from the get-go. And literally was at their wedding day, oh no, my wife once dated another man. What do? I have to cheat on her now, I guess. That's the only solution.
The only
to this.
Possible solution.
It was so puzzling that it was as if it was new news to him.
I know.
Yeah.
He was literally.
I think the idea that we're supposed to get out of that little hairbreadth thing, though, was that he thought she loved him, and then when he started seeing that hairbreadth in her wedding hair and all this stuff, it was like she wasn't over that,
and
so it wasn't specifically his.
She was,
he
she was
didn't love
just
her.
marrying him for money or whatever. She wasn't marrying him for love, and that hurt him.
I think that also the way that they're kind of focusing on it, and they don't touch on it a lot, so I think it gets kind of lost in the plot, is you start to see where exactly they are in the time period of China, and this is really smack dab in a women's liberation, where women are allowed to do things, they're allowed to get divorces and that sort of thing. And I think the objective of the show was to kind of focus him on being not okay with that kind of thinking, and she was so you see her in an interview, and she is talking about it, and she's talking about how great it is, and he doesn't actually respect that, but he has to pretend that way. And so I think that's because this, we didn't say this story with the hairbreadth and stuff, you don't find out until the very last act of the series. So this is you don't see this leading up to everything that the husband has been doing. But I think it's supposed to tie back to the fact that he only wanted her because he was only caring that she was his, but he could do anything that he wanted. And I think that was supposed to tie back to how he wasn't okay with what was going on with the women's liberation at that time, and was just not okay with any of it. And so that's kind of how he directed his rage at that, was through her, because he wanted her more than anything else. She was perfectly she was the pretty girl that he could have on his arm, because he was the son of an official, which it made them perfect, first lady, president vibes,
and it made them as a family look good too, right? Because they had this story of how he rescued her, and although I did find that scene really, really questionable when he was trying to work out a reconciliation and plan this big dinner, and she's like, what are we celebrating? He's like, the anniversary of the day we first met. And I'm like, the day you hit her with a car and caused her
and then he says,
you really want to celebrate generally,
and then he says, well, it's not my fault you fell down in the street and lost your baby. And I'm like, is that quite what happened? Because
that's a big theme in this drama. It could be called Couple of Mirrors, a story of gaslighting, because whoa, Nelly.
Well, I mean, that's what the Couple of Mirrors is referencing. It's the reflection, and how the reflections are a little bit skewed, different.
So gaslight. I stressed out the first couple episodes, because up until the part where the mistress got shot, I was really concerned, because the two of them legally probably had so much control over her life, and I thought it was going to become a very big gaslight sort of situation, where these two people you know, have legal control over her, how they make her look crazy and have her, you know, put away in an institution or something. I was like, I can't. And then, you know, she died and I was like, oh, okay, well, all right.
They did go pretty far with that, even for those episodes, though.
Pretty far.
It was very stressful for me.
Yeah. But I wanted to touch back on the women's liberation thing. So there's a point where she, the lead writer character, without telling him, publicly divorces him.
Yeah.
Like at a press conference. There's way more to that. We are not chronologically telling this whatsoever, and we're not even recapping the whole thing.
No. We're just having some fun.
We're just talking about high points. But her publicly divorcing him at a press conference for a book that she didn't write, and she was even debunking all that because they were controlling her too much. Like it was all this. She was fighting back the only way she knew how. And she would even talk about her own characters and how she wrote her characters because she wanted to be like them, to be courageous like them, and to be in charge of her own. It's obvious that her books inspired her readers, but also like she was trying to inspire herself. But it was all, you could tell it was all very women's liberation, like it was all tied to that. And so her publicly divorcing her husband, like announcing her divorce, and he acts gracious, like it's not like he was yelling at the press conference, right? Because he knows how to play. But just then the levels of his revenge as it unfolds throughout just kept getting worse and worse, and you'd think that's bad enough. Oh, hired a hitman, got it. Like,
which I did not see that coming at all. Like I truly thought it was his dad at that point. And I was like, okay,
I thought he was going to go for like personality assassination, but like he went for literal assassination, which was a bold move.
I kind of feel like, especially they kind of established that the father was kind of a little bit different in his viewpoint with his son, but he still had to have his son be at a certain point because he wasn't official and it could lose him all the money and all the accolades and stuff. And I felt that there was a kind of a moment where potentially like he actually was like the daughter-in-law more, because she was a little bit more better in terms of appearance and actually making a name for the family, and she was actually doing the things that were like really helping his campaign as opposed to his son. And when she confessed or decided to divorce him at that time and publicly, she knew that it was her only option. Like either way, it was a bad option. And the only way that she knew how and to be more effective was for it to be public and to bruise his ego, because she knew if she did it alone, she would have been killed right there. Like if it was alone, she divorced him, he would have strangled her or something. Like it would be immediate. So this was her only way out of this situation, in the most way to hurt him and to protect her, because he couldn't do anything. He had to be a little bit more secretive and a little bit more crafty in what he was going to do as a revenge plot, because the world was looking at them.
That was all very well done. So this all seems like just a crazy plot, right? But it's all very well done, and they make it feel all very realistic.
It feels very realistic.
Slowly, and like when each thing hits, you're like, ooh, okay.
I didn't find it incredibly predictable. The twists wouldn't time when I would think, that it would either be way delayed or in a different way or something. So, and even, just like I said, I figured he'd be gone like episode 4 or something. And the reason we focus so much on the husband, he's just crazy bad.
He really does seem, for a while, he seems like he's defending her against his parents and stuff. He's saying, I'll take care of it. Like, just stop. And you don't realize that what he means is he's going to take care of it. But like,
he seems more incompetent in the beginning. And then you realize, oh, he's not that at all.
But he's crafty. I also feel like the incompetency that we saw, I think that he was just more comfortable, especially at that point, because like all the things that he'd been doing them for a while. So I think that like he would be in that, like, she's not seeing it happen, so they perceive her as being less than. And I think there's a
Yeah.
really great juxtaposition with like how the fact that, you know, she's stating that she's writing these characters as a way to like maybe use her characters to help her personally, when in reality her husband being terrible was literally what made her become stronger and more independent and value herself more. And it's a great like turn in the story that like out of something so terrible, like that's when she finds her true self. And I think that also kind of helps the story along with him as he becomes more erratic and more kind of like mentally unstable, because he's literally spiraling out of control. And I think that helps because he's being fed off of the fact that she is doing better. No matter what he's doing, she is doing better. And he always expected and thought, because she was a poorer person and because of the way that they met, that she would never go far. And yet she is, and she's like competent and she's successful and she can financially like hold her ground, and it's killing him. And so that's why all the things like start to ramp up too. And I think that's why he's such a main character in the storyline. And I know that a lot of people that watch the show did not like that aspect, because they especially will touch a lot more about the girl love situation. But when you're coming into that and seeing this male character so much, I think that's like shocking. And you're like, oh, I don't want to see him. I just want it to be the other characters. And I think he was a really vital character to be in the story in the way that he was in that much, whether we like it or not. Like he definitely was, you're like, man, I just want them to be like doing these little, really cute moments. But he really did serve as a vital part in her transition. And not to give him credit, but like, you know, it's like a big thing of why she became who she was.
And he was a good reflection of society as far as like the pre-women's liberation stuff. Like society still very much was not used to women having much autonomy whatsoever. So he was always a really good reflection of that. He almost felt, especially as he was spiraling worse and worse, it did feel like he was almost larger than life because he had all the power of society behind him too, essentially. And also his dad, which is like a heck ton of power too. But even when he grabs the kid and runs with it and all these things, and it's automatically, it's like, well, he could totally get away with that. I mean, not even in
no part of me thought, oh, he couldn't. Like I was like, okay.
In today's age, it'd be like, oh, someone will stop that, he'll get found out, that won't work, blah blah blah. Oh no, like everything he did was so backed up by the patriarchal society that like
and just his own entitlement and sense of being like, you know, just a male in society. And there were some things that were like working against him because of this liberation, but also like towards the end, in that, like, you know, when he grabs the kid and that sort of thing, I think it's like its purpose was to show that it wasn't perfect too, and also kind of ground the series, because like even though he felt like larger than life, it never felt weird to me that he got to that point, because you see that every day, like with males, you know, that just is what happens. And so like it's grounded because she wasn't supposed to be able to like hit every mark. Like that's not a real true thing that would happen. I think it like helped in that there's going to be some hardships or some things that really were wrong and didn't just magically get fixed.
But the thing that really, the only thing that sort of surprised me with that scene was that the previous scene that we'd seen him in, he had been like sentenced to 10 years in jail. And you're like, okay, but it's been like 3 months. Why are you out? Which makes sense, but like you kind of feel like we should, like, it makes sense that with his dad high up in the government and stuff, he maybe would have been able to they grease some palms and stuff. But I kind of felt like maybe that was a moment where they should have said something. I should have had some understanding of how,
and it could have
because
been
it's
something.
Clearly 10 years has not gone by, because the baby is a baby. It's not a 10-year-old boy, right? Like if
maybe
he was
it was
kidnapping a 10-year-old
that they
boy,
had to take out for time too, you know.
I think we're supposed to infer that his father, who works at the high up in the government, probably
took care of it.
But plot wise, it would have been just even a little cut of like, showing the father greasing a palm. Boom.
I wonder if like it's just not a understanding. Like I don't watch Chinese dramas and I don't know anything about like crime, even like on like a modern level crime, like and detective work and stuff in China. But like it could be a reflection of what happens. Like if he was that big and stuff, he could still technically be jail, but he gets like visitation out all the time. Like, and that could be like just a realistic thing that I don't personally know. Yeah. I also kind of feel like maybe it was like a story plot that got cut because there's only 12 episodes of the show. So
I had, because I ended it a little bit after Jesse had finished and you had tweeted something about like not quite liking the way it ended. And so then all through the last episode, I was like, oh, is this so, like, I thought, okay, this is where it ends. Like he kidnaps the baby and goes off and that's how you know, have it set up for the sequel. And then like, no, it was fine. And then something else would happen. And I was like, oh, this must be the thing she got solved too. Okay, no. And then the end, and I was like, oh, that was it. Okay. But I thought that's what they were going to do. They were going to set up a second season where they had to try and find him and the baby, and you know, our assassin girl was going to like go to work, you know.
One thing that happened to me when I was watching the series, and I wasn't good about, I wanted to binge it, but like I just didn't end up binging it the way I wanted to. I would do tiny binges and lots of time in between, so it's very odd. Between my binges, I would think about the show though, and I remember thinking, where the heck did that gangster guy though go? Like, because he
popped in and out.
Because I remember thinking like they made such a big deal about his character, and I remember being intrigued by his character because they made it such a point of like he liked to cook and eat, and that was like a big thing. And like I was just thinking about it, and I was like, where the crap did he go? And then in the last episode,
I know.
Okay.
As soon as that gunshot happened, I was like, that's where the gangster went. Okay, here we go.
Well. Oh yeah, there was a gangster in it, guys. It's got, the show's got it all.
I mean, you would watch this show and you would not think that there wouldn't be like a gangster. Like there's no way that like this
feels
type of
like
show.
There's a gangster, you know?
Yeah.
And there's even a kind of turf bully type that does like protection insurance too, which is not associated with gangster whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it's more of like a little subplot to kind of show her like who she is, like how she's not gonna get played, but also like I feel
fight
like
for the little guy.
Yeah, I feel like there are the biggest missteps in this story is that there are a lot of like incompletes, and I don't know if it's because they were maybe promised more than they were. What we're referring to when what I posted on Twitter was I felt the ending was rushed. I'm fine with open endings. I'm fine with it not being like a happy ending, that sort of thing. But it felt rushed. It was like all of a sudden things happened and then she left. And now don't like quote this as truth. I found this like when I was like looking at the YouTube comments, and I don't follow any Chinese news media. So like, I don't know if there's updates to that. Someone in the comments said specifically that the director or writer had said that he had written that episode as like a tied up, them ending together type story. However, last minute, they were told that they would be getting a second season, and they were supposed to write like they were getting a second season. So that's why like things got rushed and like she went off to do something else, a little jumbled and a little messy because of that. And I could see that potential.
It was, like if you don't want the weird
too.
Yeah, like I thought the very perfect spot for it to end was like if you're watching it and you don't want to watch the weird ending, just stop. There's a scene where the cop and the assassin photographer girl are like chatting on the park bench, and she gets up to walk away. And you know what? Just end it right there. It's a perfect, nice little ending. Everybody's happy. Everything's tied up pretty much in a bow. There's a little hint that something weird is going on. But you know.
Yeah, I feel
I love that little part. It's so funny.
It was such a good scene. I would have happily just wrap this up the way it was and give me more seasons of just the three of them solving completely unrelated murders. Like,
but while he
you know what I mean?
While he still tries to prove.
Yeah, exactly. He's still trying to catch her and nail her for this other murder. But he's also
she like works on the investigation, and then like people like suddenly die, and he's like, "Wait a minute, was it you?" And she's like,
she's like,
"What?"
Yeah, like
no.
yeah, like they investigate, and then it's obvious that it's like a high, powerful person, and they'll not do jail time essentially, and then all of a sudden they just kind of disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then was that you? I don't know what you're talking about.
The dynamic between the three of them was so good. Like in that final episode, there was a nice bit with them sort of hanging out in the house and chatting. Are you staying for dinner? And he's like, no, I'm not staying for dinner. Like, you're a killer. Like, I can't eat dinner with you. And she's like, it's really good. Like, you could just, you know, like it just.
I like the dynamic between him and the rest of the
him.
cops too. Like that group
Yes.
was really cool and interesting.
Yeah.
And that was like something that like obviously there's no way we're gonna get a lot of story with it, but like that I would like to you know, like see them together and see more of their story or something.
Yeah,
for sure.
Now, okay, I love the show, but I need to say there is one aspect of the show that I think this is probably like, because it is a Chinese drama, I hate to say, and that is that during the not serious parts, because the show had, you know, like lighthearted scenes, the musical motifs that they would play during the more lighthearted stuff was almost cartoonish. And it just sort of bothered me because the rest was so like realistic and, you know, like terse and everything, and then suddenly it would just be like boop, 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 and you're like, no.
It kind of had that, like, you know, that old school like cops and robbers type thing where like, you know, a gun would go off and it would just be the flag that says bang, like, you know.
But it's like it just didn't, for me, it just didn't work.
Yeah, it
like,
definitely didn't work the way that tonally they were doing the show, because there were some really lighter parts, but like it really wasn't too, it's like a not really comedic thing. There was like some like lighter comic parts, but it was not a comedy by any means. But yeah,
well, and just even the way everything is shot, like the filters that they use and everything, it's got a darker kind of look to it. It's interesting when you look at the manga, because the manga is very bright and like colorful and shiny, and it's the exact same scenes, but like as if you like peeled off a couple of layers of grime or something off of the like the lens or something, so all the colors are brighter and more cheerful.
It's very beautifully filmed. It's a very beautiful,
so beautiful. So, and so is the manga. The artwork in the manga is gorgeous. So, but they all look like white people, as they do sometimes in mangas. It's so weird. Although the husband in the manga, so much more attractive than the actor who plays the husband in the drama. I'm just gonna say.
We all have been hating on the husband, but I gotta say, the actor they've got playing the husband is doing the most.
I really think he did a really good job in his role.
He did. So yeah, he every tone he had, and his character had a lot of different levels. And every time he sold it. Like and when I said larger than life before, I was meaning more like the authority he had with his dad and society behind him. He never felt cartoonish or anything at all. He sold it.
Yeah, he was really good at like that subtle, like able to like subtly kind of progress to what he is at the like kind of the explosion of the
and
end.
he really balanced he's actually a weasel, but people don't think he's a weasel, like, perfectly, because that's a really easy role to like
it's like he was set up as like a pretty great person, but like I never thought of him in the very beginning as like, oh my god, everyone loved him. Like it was very clear to see, like especially in like the party that they go to with the magician guy, it was very clear to see that she was the center of attention, and he was the arm candy in a way, like yes,
and you
like
you could tell he wasn't loving
like the one girl that we didn't really talk about that is kind of her competition in the social
rival
world. She does come up to kind of like try to like flirt with him and do that stuff, but it's all literally because of her. So it's like if she's flirting with him, it's always like still looking at her, that sort of thing. So she still was the main attention, and he was kind of there as just like the pawn. And I thought that was like an interesting thing to do.
Clever.
And the way that like the actor was able to be that way at the very beginning and do all the steps that he needed to get to the point. You're like, I was surprised that he was a weasel, but also looking back, I'm not surprised. Like, it's not surprising in like it's like caught off guard because they purposely did it, you know, how it's like some crime things. So you're like, but you really didn't set that up, so you just wanted this to happen. But they didn't do that with this one. Like, you were like, oh, okay.
Just finished reading a cozy mystery that did that, and I was like, what? You didn't know.
Like, I'm rewatching Murder, She
in the
Wrote.
last chapter, this is the killer. And I was like, no, she's not.
Murder, She Wrote does the same thing. Where they'll literally, the only way that you can find out who the killer is by evidence they don't show you in the program.
Yeah.
That's how it's always set up. You're like, she's like, oh, and then you did this and this and this. And I was like, that's not evidence that we like saw or storyline.
Like, that's not good storytelling. Don't do that.
Like, but
and in this,
it's like the more that you learn about him, the more you're like, this son of a bitch, he did everything.
And I think that's partially due to the way they tell the story, right? Like the way that it jumps back and forth a little bit in time, but not in a way that, like, sometimes when dramas do that, or books or whatever, it's confusing and it's not good. But they used that in this really, really well to like to draw it out and to give you this much story, and you're like, okay, I know where we are. And then they're like, do you? Because here's some more from back here, and it overlaps, and you're like, oh, okay, now I know where we are. And they're like, oh, you think you do, but here is another little bit to this story that overlaps with these two other bits. And now you're starting to get, it's a completely different story, but like, it all fits together, and
it's a very nice.
It's good storytelling.
So let's talk more about the girl love aspect and photographer, assassin girl, and writer, celebrity, former poor person girl.
It's a grumpy one and a sunshine one.
Yeah. It's a perfect dynamic. Like, it's a classic. It's a classic romantic setup, except that because of censorship, they were roommates.
I think also I feel like there was actually a lot of hate towards the fact that like a lot of people felt kind of like, I don't know the word because it's late at night, like gypped or like pulled in because of this girl love, especially with the the photo shoots that they did, and like then
they did kind of mislead you.
Like, they misled you into this, and I do find like there is that aspect of it. I do feel that like that was a thing. However,
it was definitely queer baiting. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I meant. Queer baiting, but like I feel like that when we're like people were discussing that aspect, they never were really discussing the fact that like this story is not really a love story. It's supposed to be like a power intrigue and like mystery
like thriller kind
of thriller, like not super thrilling, but like, you know, a thriller, which meant that no matter what, they wouldn't have like a huge focus on the romance. And I think that was like something, I guess maybe that was also like a bait for people, that maybe they saw this as more of a romance than it was. So that's like a thing. And I think that's kind of some of the reasons why people felt negatively about it. I personally didn't hate that, but I also am really into stories that feature people whose voices are never heard doing normal things. Not to say this was a normal story, but like I don't need to have some like grand things happen. Like I don't have to have like, you know, over exaggerated things. Like if you're not you're gonna give that to a straight couple, you give that to a lesbian couple as well. And I do think that like in terms of what the actual show was about and censorship that we have to take into effect, and also cultural just cultural things. That's why this show isn't as girl love as it could have been or should have been even, but
well,
where we are.
And I think even if you were to take the like Chinese media censorship out of it, you're still probably not going to get that level of story, that not realistically anyway, because for the time frame, it's not going to be socially acceptable for two girls to be walking down the street kissing and stuff, like
holding hands. Yes, for sure.
Holding hands, because you can be friends, right? You can be friends and roommates. But it's we sometimes forget, living in 2020, that it was not always socially acceptable for people. It was not always legal. I've read a series recently about a gay couple set in the same time period, and they could literally be hanged for if people found out they were having sex with each other, because that is the law. It's against the law. It's not just not socially acceptable. It is literally against the law in many countries at this time period. So you're not going to get these big romantic gesture moments out in public.
Can't. There's too much story going on that there really isn't. And I think what the show really did well in terms of a girl love aspect is showing the relationship slowly developing. And I think that was a really beautiful thing that they did, and kind of had the show. It was literally, you're watching them fall in love. It wasn't like love at first sight or anything like that. It wasn't some like grand, like just like, oh my gosh, sparkle in your eyes and you're immediately connected. There was this like beauty of this like transition. It was really kind of like a best friend to lovers kind of transition in the storyline. And I think that is really where I thought the show did well in terms of a girl love aspect. It was kind of, you start to see it, and it's little moments too, and I love little moments. So it'd be like, when she falls asleep on the spy girl in that one scene, and you're like, that's like when you could tell that girl was like, oh, I kind of like you now. And that was such a great moment. Or like just like some of the moments domestically that they were doing when she had the baby. I think those moments really worked well, because they weren't focused on this to be just some like crazy love story type thing. It was like very like quiet, sweet moments.
And because of the way the story was unfolding, you got domesticity with them, like you got so much domestic time with them. It was great. I mean, how many fast? How many other mystery-ish type shows are you going to get that much domestic? Those many domestic? You won't. Like, to me, there was a lot of domestic screen time, and I thought it was great. Like,
I really loved those moments, and they worked well for the show too, because I also didn't want, because of who I am, I didn't want them to betray the like main social storyline. I didn't want them to like be like, oh, now that she's with this girl, she's now not a spy anymore. She's not going to do anything or that sort of thing.
No.
But they like, and it's also where we kind of like got to see a lot more in the spy's character as opposed to the writer's character, because we did spend a lot of time in her viewpoint. She is definitely the main character out of the two, right? But like you got to see like little things like the traps that she had at home, or the way that she has her shower, like and that sort of thing. Like I think that was really great to kind of see, like it was almost like the audience was going along the journey of her coming out of her shell with this main character, like forcing it, like not forcing it, but like getting it out of her too, which like it was also a really great like tie in with the main character also learning to love herself and learning to care for her. It was a really great little mashup of everything.
I liked their dynamic of, it was pretty much the extrovert and the introvert too.
Absolutely.
And I loved that.
Yeah.
I liked that it was also like it had that, like you've got the girly and the sort of tomboy, but like from a perspective of like, she just, when you've seen her flashbacks of how she was raised, like she was not learning about skincare and stuff, like this was not on her radar. And then just the way the other girls like, well, this room's really great, but like, maybe we could put curtains up and maybe we could do some things. And she's like, okay. At the same time, she was like, all right, and I'll just pay for all that thing. You want those things? We should have those things because they'll make you happy and
make a
and
little
this
smile.
is the things that you need to feel comfortable. So let's do that. Like, it was so cute.
I think it was just a really sweet, like seeing like just that first kind of love happen, like that like relationship, like just in its first stages. Like we didn't rush to anything, and it was like a really sweet. They were really like sweet and tender moments when they were with each other, and I love that like so much more because I got so much more out of their relationship because it wasn't like this hot passionate thing like going on with the world.
It would have been weird too, though. Like,
I don't think Assassin Girl would have. It's not that Assassin Girl can't be passionate. I'm sure she could, maybe, if she could trust someone enough. But
but that's not going to take time.
Her character. So, like, in order to be true to her character, you know, it has to fall in line. It has to be quiet, and I think for her. You know, like in order to be who she is.
With the other characters, well, like. She was passionately in love with her husband at the beginning. Like, she thought she had a perfect marriage and she was happy. We're talking like 6-month time period.
Her world
you don't just
apart.
like, okay, and now I'm done. Like,
passionate. She had a best friend who betrayed her and was like really betraying her, not just in like
not in
that sort of thing
to be like having passionate love affairs and stuff. Like, she was probably not in that headspace yet.
What was the
it's
one
gonna take
scene
a little while
where she was making the soup or something or kanji or whatever for the spy girl, the very, very beginning of them like hanging out, and it mirrored something that she wanted. And I can't remember, it's been too long since I watched that because I watched it when it was airing. Like, it was a mirror of something maybe she said in her book or something, that like she wanted someone to do that for her, or he did it for her at one point, and that's when she like felt like really loved because he did this. But then she did it for the spy girl and felt that love by like doing it for her, and it was like a continuous thing. She kept on making food for her as well during the series, and also giving some to the cat too.
Oh my God,
feeding the cat.
I love that cat. Lucky cat.
I loved the spy girl in the kitchen, and just the way she was like trying to be this like really good like housewife, but she was really bad at it, but she really wanted to try. Like,
but she worked on it.
What was that? Did you break another baby bottle? And she's like, no. Kicks the shattered glass under the counter, you know, like, it was a teacup. Okay.
How she's like secretly helping the cop, but it just ends up with her like hucking one of the baby bottles at this robber, knocking him out, and then disappearing before the cop shows up, and he's like, God damn. Bottle nipple, I know it's you.
I totally want like a series that's just like a mom superhero that like she's got the baby strapped on her back and she's like parkouring through the neighborhood, like whipping baby bottles at like robbers and stuff and purse snatchers. Like, just, I was like, that was great.
And I think by the end of the series, the two characters, it was pretty much they found home in each other, which to me, that says a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And realistically, that's as far as you can get in 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, like, and in 12 episodes of a show that like
like
being like almost murdered like 4 times. Yeah. It really did feel like, we talked about this, it just really felt real for their relationship, and it felt like that's how that relationship would go too. Like, it wouldn't do anything more than that, just because that's like how their relationship is, you know.
Also, and how you know Spy Girl loves Writer Girl is whenever Writer Girl is kind of being a little spoiled brat on some level, Spy Girl is very much like, okay, let's go shopping and I'll get you all the things you want. Yeah. Even though you're kind of
you want that typewriter? We'll get it.
Yeah, and she just smiled. The way she would smile at her, like just looking at her when she wasn't looking and stuff, like it was much more, I think, obviously girl love from watching the Spy Girls response. You know, the Writer Girl almost had a little bit of like, almost a bit of like himbo energy going on where she was sort of like, la la la, I'm just so happy and you're so great. And then like you kind of feel like maybe at one point like Spy Girl's just gonna kiss her and she's gonna be like, oh, okay,
Like
we're dating.
literally, there's a scene where they're talking about whether they want the baby to be a boy or a girl, and she's like, "Oh, I wonder if the baby's gonna be sad that like they doesn't have a father." And then Spy Girl's like, "I'll be the baby's father." Like,
Yeah,
girl,
immediately.
Yeah.
girl.
They have like
pick up what
talked
she's putting
about
down.
like the baby like names, like if like who's gonna take what like you know session and stuff. I think one of like the most beautiful like moments that they had was right before everything went down with her estranged husband, when they had just gotten out of the doctor's office when she was pregnant and she was in the wheelchair, and they were kind of just like running around the courtyard of the place. It was just so nice, and they were so happy, and you could just tell it was like they were happy. She was also happy about the baby being okay, and like just it's a really sweet moment for both of them.
And then also near the end when they were like having drinks outside and talking about stuff, and Spy Girl is pretty much like, whenever the baby gets old enough, you need to go out and do your own stuff. You don't have to be stuck in, like, encouraging her to keep doing what she wants to do. You already have your world. You should keep being in it. Like, that was great.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I really like their relationship. Like, I understand, and like I totally respect everyone who felt like betrayed by it. And I don't want to knock down feelings about people who really did like not like that because of that. But I really do feel like for the story and the time and what we had and, you know, cultural restrictions and that sort of thing, I think they did do well. Like, there's obviously like room to improve and stuff like that, but I really do feel that a lot of the stuff, they didn't betray the characters to get that relationship to a different part, and I do respect it on that level.
And they also didn't betray the plot. Now, if it was straight up romance, not people bodies hitting the floor,
or that was the secondary thing, sure,
we'd be having a completely different discussion about this, right? Like, we would expect there should be some kissing, like there should be some different stuff going on then. But it was, there was a body count, like stuff was going on,
and not the fun kind that they talk about
fun,
on the TikToks that the youth refer to on the tickety talks.
Yeah, not that kind of
although I mean the husband
the husband had some
both
count.
kind of body counts going on.
He was a busy boy. Like, what
he
was
had a high body count.
How did she not know he was cheating?
How did he get?
She was busy writing her books about.
I think that's what it was.
Strong, independent woman who don't need no man.
What I wondered about was when you started to get the reveal that like the best friend wasn't the only one. I wondered if the best friend knew that he was with other people, or if the best friend thought she was the only one. You know what I mean? Like,
she kind of seemed
how
like,
good was he? Or, you know,
potentially that she thought he was more dedicated to her than she thought. There was that like one moment where she gets really upset. I also think that like maybe part of the reason why the main lead didn't understand what was going on with husband was because if he was going away with someone other than the best friend, she was with the best friend, so they both didn't know. And then also if she was going to go with the husband, the best friend could warp the situation to get her away. Now that like proves to be like a flaw in things, because she's found out, because they have to go off and do it in like a room at the party. But like I feel like because of the mistress or the best friend being where she was in her social circle meant that like she could manipulate situations so she doesn't see. Also, the girl just didn't have any other friends too. She was probably just like in a room writing a lot, or you know, they lived in a really big place, so
but also true. Like, how did he get literally any work done because he was busy
See,
hiring
and that's what I
hitmen.
kind of
He was
thought was that
busy.
he was maybe more of a figurehead job. Like his daddy got him the job, and
Yeah,
it
and I
was
feel like
more
most
on
of their
paper
money
than it was
is the dad's.
actually
It was
like
nepotism.
it was a
Yeah.
way for daddy to keep paying his bills without, it really.
And he obviously wasn't that great at it because the dad sure wasn't impressed
Yeah.
with any of his.
No.
Yeah. And I think
And
also
the
the
mom was
girl
a piece of work too.
just
Oh.
wanted to believe people for who they were. She didn't
Yeah.
want to see the bad in people. So
For sure.
in that kind of respect, she was
And you
not
can
oblivious
kinda
to
tell
everything.
that's the case because she knew that he tried. I know, sorry, tippity taps, tippity taps. She knew that he tried to have her murdered, and was like, "Oh, it's fine. Like, he probably won't do it again."
Yeah, I know. I was like,
It's
no,
my goal.
like,
is like,
you have an assassin girlfriend. Get her to assassin. Like, just
Yeah, you
I
have
hate
Come
to
on
tell you
now.
this, girl, but he gonna do it again. Like, one attempted murder, he's gonna try again.
girl,
the
like
next
get
time
it.
You, do something
You
he
want
doesn't like.
the best in people, but that doesn't mean that they will do that if you want
Yeah.
it.
yeah. Her character was fun though. Like
Yeah.
they showed a lot of her levels too.
Mhm.
She got a lot of screen time, and she definitely was the main one.
Well, because the story all sort of revolved around her and her relationships. Like
Mhm.
everyone who was part of the story knew her and was
Mhm.
like interested in her as. So it's not that she was actually like, for the most part, she wasn't doing anything to
The
like.
stuff kept happening around her.
She was
Mhm.
just there, you know.
Yeah.
Wrong place,
just
She
wrong
had
time.
a lot of wrong place, wrong time scenarios.
She was
Okay.
just trying
Really
to get her
unfortunate.
book published in Japan. That was like that was her motivation for the first part of the story. Is like she just.
Speaking of relationships, shall we talk a little bit about Mr. Journalism Man, Mr.
Oh
Journalist?
boy.
Mhm.
Oh Lord.
Oh god.
Good God.
Like,
when it-
listen, he's not like a bad dude. I need to like. I don't hate this guy. I don't hate his character,
No.
but dude, like,
I think
Oh.
the
give
writing and
him-
the insertion of his character within the story felt rushed and kind
Yeah.
of jumbled.
Mhm.
So
Sudden.
it
Very
never
sudden.
like could catch up with it. Like it never seemed like it fit. It like it did feel like he was almost there so that she could have that pin in her hair. Like, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
like this was his
It
only
probably
He was a
like,
sexy
mission.
lamp, and that was all his purpose.
It probably
Like, he
would have
just-
like made more sense if he were to appear after the audience finds out what he did in their past. You know what I mean? Like, but since he appears before then, and you're like, okay, who the fuck is this guy? Like, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
he's just some dude that she like knew, and it's like, oh, she knew him in the biblical sense, like, you know. But you have to like wait a while to find that out. That you're like, why does she care about this random dude who used to come into the coffee shop where she worked? Like, ooh, he's a famous journalist now. Good for you. Like, what is this happening?
I thought we talked about how the husband sort of reflected that time period of like not being into, women's liberation and stuff. And he sort of was a flip side of the same coin. Like he was into it, and like kind of that kind of guy who thinks he's progressed and like thinks he's into women's lib, but
Mhm.
also sits down and says, well, you're getting a divorce, so I should take care of you now. Like,
Yeah.
there's a third
She-
option on the table. She could
she's
take care
like-
of herself. Like, it's not.
I'm a rich, famous author.
I think I'm good.
I don't actually need anyone to take care of me. It's like, oh, you're gonna take care of me? You're gonna take care of me like that time that you knocked me up and then disappeared because you got a job offer? Like, thank you. Like,
But like he was just like, I think it's time for you to choose me now. And it was like,
Mhm.
I was like, are you rewriting history right now?
Yeah.
what?
I wonder if the like plot would have been a little bit better if they kind of had focused maybe more on like him not being that special, but like the fact that like he is tied to her pregnancy, and because she lost the baby, that was like a special thing for her. And so by default she only has this hairpin that she has as like a memento of the child, and if they had focused that more on him, and maybe like her just not caring about him at all, and he kind of being more like, hey, let's just another like character there that's trying to woo her, and like didn't get as much like screen time as he did.
They really built up his character as far as even before we saw him. It was the quote unquote friends talking about the handsome journalist and how accomplished he was. I mean, there's so much ink was spilled in describing this guy before we even saw him.
Yeah,
it was just kind of funny.
It like worked in a way because of what he did as in the interview session, like it, and because he was the one who was the interviewer for her to talk about kind of the liberation and what she found really great about and that sort of thing. So it brought that to the table, but I don't know. I just feel like that he was like poorly written, and it just kind of reflected in that. It just never worked.
I really did love it. They were like, oh, so handsome. So like, listen, dude was okay, but
the cop was the most handsome dude on the show.
Who's the hottest dude on the show?
And his sidekick, his suspender sidekick.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice.
They were great.
There was some nice looking
dude. Even the magician was pretty. Like, but I mean, he's a terrible person.
Nobody on this show was really
he was
ugly because it is a drama, but like,
nobody's perfect. That's what you just said.
No, I said nobody's ugly.
Nobody's ugly.
Because I said, well, he was our child murder, and you're like, well, no, all I heard was, well, nobody's perfect.
No, that is not what I said. I don't want kids. I don't. It's not because I want kids to go away. I personally don't want to birth them.
In between place here. It's not,
you're just like, I don't want them near me, but I'm okay with them existing. I don't want to
play with them for a second and then go away. I don't hate them.
Same. Oh my god. Ooh, that was a miss here. Also, lots of good eye candy if that's your motivation for watching a show.
Even just I had some like great eye candy and set design. Oh gosh, I love everything about it. Go ahead, Sky.
Everything's beautiful.
There was like a third level plot. I mean, it helped tie in some other things, but I was so lost with it for a while. The actor guy.
Yeah, that was.
Oh yeah.
It took a while to.
The way, and it was fine. This show is slow burn with a lot of this stuff with the information, and it fits the tone. So like, I'm totally down with it. But I was very confused about actor guy for a while. Like,
because like they kept bringing him up, but I was like, okay, but why?
You're obviously probably not a good dude. Like, I didn't quite understand for a while. And he was kind of just one of those extra deaths that it was like, did we need it really? I'm not sure we needed
level that you needed.
Yeah.
You're like,
I have to admit, I just like really enjoyed how those two cops how they didn't die of like a brain damage situation, because those guys were getting their asses handed to them left, right, and center. They were in car crashes. They're getting fucking punched so hard that like spit is flying out of their mouths. They're constantly busted up. Like,
I do think that was like a fun, like, even though it kind of gets a little like crazy in terms of like the overall of the show, it's like got that like really fun like cops and robbers like thing that you could tell, like we were talking about with like the music, that's kind of what they were trying to go to. It did have like that kind of like spy versus cops versus robbers type thing. That was kind of like a fun little thing that was happening,
I was also very confused about when she was nearly killed with the car going into the lake pond, and how for a while we lost track of like who did it. I mean, it was obvious that Assassin Girl was like gonna figure out who on earth did it, and eventually there was a reveal. But since it was slow burn enough with that information, and other things happened in between with other sub characters and all this other stuff, for a while I was like, please tell me we're not like dropping who on earth tried to kill her. Like, I was really concerned for a little bit that since she was kind of trying to forgive and all this stuff. And I was like, no, like I'd really rather that dude go away at some point.
I did like that they didn't, like at no point did anybody seem to think that it was the driver, like that he was the mastermind. He was just trying to kill her because he was a crazy fan or something. They all clearly knew he was getting paid by somebody, you know, like nobody was like floating some, you know, crazy fan theory or something. It was all very like, no, obviously like your father-in-law or somebody is trying to kill you because but we don't know who because we can't find the driver. So like until we can find him, we have no clues. And I'm like, really? None? Like I feel like you could do something here. Who paid, like who rented the car? I don't know, but like
you're like, I
do some
like
detective work.
Probably like ask him a few questions.
Like
just I'm sure you could follow a paper trail of some
something,
sort.
you know. It goes.
Like, listen, you guys have been good cops the whole time. Why are you failing so hard at this one?
But just like Jesse kind of mentioned earlier, there's sometimes, especially with the time period, you kind of wonder like maybe the cops were just kind of, that's as far as they could go with some stuff.
And she wasn't really pushing it either, right? Like she was kind of like, no, I'm sure he just like hopped out of the car, but there was no time. I'm like, he drugged you. Like, what? But like, if she's not pushing it and the cops have no leads,
they have other stuff
I guess
to do.
It was just a car accident and we're just going to write it off as a car accident because that's.
Maybe she's just like always in a state of denial. Like she's like, this really can't be happening to me. Like this is something I would put in a book. Like,
yeah, she's like, I am not a murder writer, so like this murder mystery stuff is just right over my head. I don't know.
And she's probably like, if I start actually admitting that this is all true, my life is pretty crappy, man.
Yeah. I have to believe good things about people or else.
Maybe that really is like that, like could have been her breaking point, that like if she does not believe that there's good, then all of it would mean it's real and that it would really affect her.
That's true.
It's obvious that she knew things. It's just that it was probably her coping.
Yeah.
And she's a sunshine.
Yeah, she was a sunshine. She's such a sunshine.
Look on the bright side situation.
It's hard to believe.
It's hard for us non-sunshine people to like really understand that.
I'd be like, I trust no one around here. You all could have done it, and I will hate you until it's proven.
Right? It's like I will go hang out with Lucky in the corner. He is the only one I currently trust.
I don't need you, Bob. I don't need this.
This is some straight bullshit.
The fact that she can stay sunshine, though, like, I mean, those first few episodes, being betrayed by your best friend and your husband, like that, the fact that she doesn't completely break down. She kind of has a little bit of a breakdown, but not like completely, you know. And it's nice. It's nice to. It seems in character. Like the more you get to know her, you're like, she's got that sort of strong spine that like she's very sunshine, but she's also, every time you kind of think like this is gonna be the breaking point, this is gonna be the thing here, she doesn't have any out, and then she does. Like she makes a door, she makes an out for herself, she does a thing, and you're like, I did not see that coming. She has more backbone than I maybe thought she did. So it's nice to see that way. She's not just a pushover.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure at some juncture and all that, I would have just rolled her and be like, yeah, I'm done. Like,
yeah, no, you know what, whatever.
We're done here.
There'll be a writer in the woods.
Yeah. Forget this whole society thing.
Yeah,
I am done.
We're good.
So, do we hope for season 2, maybe?
I do.
I'm fine either
Watch
way.
more of them.
Yeah.
I would happily watch. I don't think it needed the weird ending that it got. Like, because I would just happily watch them solving a completely unrelated series of murders, like where they're not necessarily the central figures, and just give me another story like this one and unfold it that same way and give me
Listen,
the top and the, you know, characters, and
I
I'd be happy.
just want them to just like have this lovely domestic side story to them, just, you know, to the assassin lady helping cop dude do his job while he's just frustrated at the fact that he knows she's the one helping him, but he cannot prove anything.
And then you just have the story where she like comes back home to the main girl and then like helps out, like, and she's got like things done. Like if we don't get a season, it's like whatever. But you do hope that we get another season, not like necessarily because like, oh my gosh, we have to see how it ends, and you know, kind of got that kind of open-ended ending, but just like I feel like I want more time with the characters, and I think like the story was like entertaining enough for me to like want it, because it was like a fun, like I really like I liked it. Like Candy was like good, but it wasn't like my favorite thing, but it was also not even like remotely bad. Like I was thoroughly entertained with it. I really had fun watching the characters and the story kind of unfold and that sort of thing. But also I just like feel like maybe even if I'm like really big on like, even if it's not going to be perfect, having things like this show with the girl up aspect, even if they're not perfect, like campaigning to like get more of it to happen, because it only will keep being a thing if you like force the change. And it's not going to be perfect at the very beginning, and it's not going to be what you want. But I think like trying to get more of this to happen and to show that like there's an audience for it, and for multiple seasons or whatever, like is like a specific thing for them in their terms of their parameters of like getting money out of it. I think I want that for this genre in general.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And it'd be great to see modern ones.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I know there are a few coming out of Thailand, but only a few.
Yeah, and Japan has always been kind of good with that, but I think just more. But we always need more, and I do feel that there is a big problem with the fact that if it defaults to a gay storyline, it's gonna always be two boys and not two girls, or like transgender characters or non-binary characters, that sort of thing. And that is a problem that needs to be addressed. It doesn't take anything away from the importance of the BL characters and their stories and their prevalence. But I think, you know, females get shafted always. I mean, this is a good example. This show is a good example of that, you know? But like it happens even in the kind of progressive areas too. And it's like something that needs to be addressed a little bit more too. And I think having these shows and like getting more popular really helps people who may find that they don't have the voice find the confidence to have the voice, or feel like that there are people who want it for them. Because I feel that that's also a big thing where people are silenced and then they don't have the voice, whether it's because of their situation or just because of their personality. They're not the type of person who would have that kind of voice. And when you find that like the voice is only for these other places and it's not your place, then you kind of are like, well, I guess I am the only one. And if it's just like hanging on me being the voice, what's that's gonna do? And I think like just having like the knowledge that people want this helps those other people like have stories that they want.
For sure. And I think with the boy love genre getting more and more acceptable, we're seeing it come out of Korea, we're getting like the Filipino ones, we're getting a lot more of it. We get to have things like the Untamed and stuff. We're getting costume dramas, we're getting like just so much more variety, and murder mystery ones, and just, you know, domestic fluff ones and stuff, because the more there is, the more types of stories you can tell. So when there's only half a dozen girl loves, there's only so many stories that get told. And so if that story is not the one that speaks to you, like Pearl Next Door, a lot of people were looking forward to it, and then were very disappointed by what kind of story it was. And so if that's the only one you get, if you only get one girl love story every 5 years, and it's not the story you wanted to see, it's really disappointing, right?
When you have these marginalized voices and they only get like the same storylines and the same types of things, it just doesn't really help. Like it does in a sense, but like
you gotta start
you shouldn't think boy love and then only expect it to be like a rom-com or just like romance. Like it should be like anything. It should be in any genre. If straight couples can be in any genre and at any level of the romance, like whether it be super passionate or not, like then that should be like kind of focus on this sort of thing. And I think that's like a really big thing that a lot of people don't address, and it may be because you're not part of the like the minority, and so like you just see, you're like, oh, but boy love's so like prevalent and you see so many people liking it, but it's like there's also more that can always be done. And listening to the people in the community like talk about that, and also like kind of adjusting your biases, because you won't personally think about things. Like I know that like for me, I've seen almost every single person like not address or really check themselves in fat positive stuff, and like I never see my character, like I never see me in a character, because I'm always the like comedian, and I'm not like
best friend.
That's not me. That's why I want representation to be like spanning and you know, showcasing that people are different even in minorities as well. And this ties in with everything. It ties in with greater outside of like, you know, gay shows and you know, people of color and that sort of thing. But Lizzie agrees.
Lizzie does agree. So we really recommend Couple of Mirrors.
Very, very much so.
And it's easily found. It's on YouTube.
So accessible.
It's on YouTube, man. Like easiest place to find it. You don't even need a subscription to watch it. You'll have a few ads, but you can watch it to your heart's content. So we think you should watch it. If what we were talking about sounds interesting to you, please. And if you have watched it, please, we want to hear what you thought. So there's a few ways you can do that. The easiest being to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. But if you want to go more in-depth discussion, we do have a sick Discord, baby. That's right. And we have episode discussions and all sorts of stuff that goes down over there. So y'all should check it out. There will be links. And where will you find these links? That's right, our website, certifiednunas.com. That's where you find all the links to everything that we talk about. And, you know, and more. To tantalize you to get over there to the website. We are also, we've been at this a long time. Almost 3 entire years, to be exact. That's right. The day that this comes out, we are having a live stream. So if you are listening to this in the morning when it first hits, you are in luck, because this evening, the 11th, right? It's the 11th? 8 p.m. Eastern time, we are having a Nooniversary live stream where we're just going to have a little party, because we've been podcasting for what seems like a billion trillion years.
Yeah, once you throw a pandemic in there,
like, it's been a while, and you've been with us through it, so we want to chill out with y'all and have a good time. So we hope that we see you there. You can listen to this podcast wherever podcasts can be found, but always all the episodes are still on our website. Oh, that live stream is going to be on YouTube. Sorry, I should probably mention that. Check our Twitter for the links when it comes up. That's usually the best place to get, you know.
Or go follow our YouTube, set the alarms on, you know.
Like and subscribe, hit the bell notification. I don't know if you can tell, I watch a lot of YouTubers. And yes, if you want to support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/certifiednunas and become part of the Certified Found family. We have movie nights, we have little extra things up there, and you keep the lights gone, basically, on this little podcast, because everything in this world costs money, unfortunately. And, you know, we don't have sponsors, though we're open to that. We always make the joke that, listen, we can be bought. Anyway, we hope that you have a fantastic week, that you continue to stay safe, you continue to wash your hands, wear your mask, go get vaccinated if you haven't been able to already, please do, and keep enjoying Asian entertainment. Alrighties, bye!
Bye.
Bye.